Aye. With that, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everyone for being here. Summer approaches. Go ahead and take a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next is the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just had one quick question. I had never seen the one that's highlighted on our thing. Is that,
It was a late ad.
what is it? I know it's a late ad, but what is it like what do they call it in college when they go teach?
Oh, like
in
a
Brazil?
sabbatical?
Yeah, is that?
Similar, yes.
Okay.
So, per the negotiated agreement, they do have the option for a 1-year leave of absence, and so that's
Okay.
what's being requested there. And so we would just follow those guidelines of the negotiated agreement
Okay,
to allow that.
thank you.
Yep.
That was the word I was looking for.
Any other questions or call-outs? With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Brings us to discussion items. I'll lead off with some good news. I'll start with, first of all, today, our soon-to-be superintendent, Mark Geese, successfully defended his PhD. So that was a big piece of work he's been trying to finish up before he joins us on June 1st. So talk with him shortly today via text, and that part's done. I also wanted to call out, there's been a lot of stuff in the news about critical race theory. We've looked at it statewide, and we know from a Middleton standpoint that we are not teaching to critical race theory. We have our locally approved curriculum, and we teach the Idaho standards. There's many definitions of critical race theory, but of the ones that have been most popularly talked about, they don't fall under the Idaho standards, and it doesn't fit in our curriculum that has been approved locally. So when people get excited about it or trying to dial into it, our curriculums are approved locally by parents, teachers, staff, then by the school board. We just spent months almost years really going through science curriculum that's been adopted. So that's not something that at this point we're hitting. We'll continually be a locally approved curriculum from our school board, local control. So rest assured, we're in good shape there. Lastly, really to call out to Lisa and Cheryl, I got a little bit of note. We talk about kids going on to college, and what we're looking at, the grants that the state has also approved. So 2 years ago, we had 7 kids qualify for the Idaho Opportunity Scholarships. So this year, we are at 30 kids for this Idaho scholarship. So if that's fully utilized by our students, that's $420,000 of opportunity money towards Middleton students. So people get wrapped up on graduation rates, on go-on rates. Here's where the rubber meets the road on kids applying for state money to go on, stay in Idaho,
My daughter was
further
doing this.
education, right? This is,
Mhm.
so
Actually.
it's, public schools in general are, meeting the bar, and boards like ourselves are actively involved, and we will stay actively involved at the local level. So thank you guys for what you're doing. Lisa, thank you for highlighting this last year, and I know Cheryl had a piece of that as well. But to me, real dollars, what we're talking about, so.
I would add to that to say kudos to the administration of the high schools and pulling off an
Yes,
amazing job,
counselors.
not only during the school year to manage through this, but to wrap it up with a fantastic graduation.
Life is good. With that, we'll move into the action items, which is student parent handbooks. We can break them down individually, we can discuss them in whole.
Do you want a motion first or discussion?
I'll go ahead and accept whatever motion you wanted to put forward, and we can take discussion after that, or
So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept the student and parent handbooks.
is there a second?
A second.
Now for discussion.
The only thing that, I would like to see is so the Middleton, the high school and the academies handbooks they're pretty aligned, like almost, which I'm glad because that should happen. There are some areas in the middle school. So for all secondary, the middle school handbook, specifically the dress code, we've updated all those policies and stuff, but I would like to see specifically the dress code area match that of the high school and academy so that we have alignment there for those three pieces with policy and with all three schools.
And so I guess I'll ask Lisa, so how would we go about that alignment piece?
So I think if you guys in your motion just want to make that recommendation, then what I can do is touch back with those administrators and work through the verbiage of all three, and then also make sure that it aligns, because we do have a new dress code policy, ensure that they all three align to that new policy as well, so that stays the same. I can just touch back with them, and then once we make those adjustments, we can bring it back to the board to see again.
You have to amend it, right? Or do you have to?
So this is just discussion. So
Okay.
then when we do, so if anyone else had anything they saw or needed to discuss.
The only thing I don't know if it needs to be in the substitute handbook, but is there a way, and doesn't have to necessarily be in the handbook, that substitutes have, I don't know if they need, that they're in all the email updates, they're in, or maybe there's a preferred substitute group to where they're getting all the updates that happen within the school, and they're entering the school. It seems to me, talking to substitutes for the last few years, that sometimes they fall outside of that norm, especially the ones that we have over and over and over again.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's in the handbook, or if there's a way that we can work to include our most common or most used substitutes to where they're not staff, but they're getting the same updates as staff. And so I'd like to bring them in closer. When I looked at the budget, if you looked at, obviously from this year, we're, because of everything we went through, we were, over 3 times our budget for substitutes. So we obviously probably won't need as many next year, given the health concerns and the absences, but I think it's important to make sure that we tie our substitutes. They're so hard to get, that we tie them into our day-to-day activities, especially the ones that are our go-to substitutes. I don't know that needs to be addressed in the handbook, but I think it's critical so that we can keep them.
We've been looking at some different ways to create like usernames and stuff for them to do just that. And so we'll continue to work with Nick on that and see if we can find a better way to bridge that communication.
Okay. Any other handbook discussion? So the motion on the floor is to accept them. Do we need to
Well, now we need to amend
amend
the
that
motion.
you want to do a friendly amendment? Motion maker.
So I would like to amend my original motion to accept the handbooks with the exception of the dress code policy for the secondary schools, and have that brought back once it's aligned. Does that work? That motion work?
If you could accept it and make the recommendation.
Oh, and so we're gonna accept the handbooks and recommend that the what are they called? Secondary.
Secondary, yep.
Secondary handbooks, dress code section be looked at and aligned.
One second. I have to-
And a second at that
We use it per policy.
Per policy.
for policy. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0. That brings us up to this device protection plan. And Lisa, do you want to talk to that a little bit
Sure.
before we discuss it and take any action?
So currently with our one-to-one program, we don't charge any fees, we don't charge anything up front. It's really just one-to-one for all students that come to school. And so with that, in our handbooks, you'll see that we have certain laptop policies. And if certain damage is done, then we have a schedule of replacement costs if damage is done to the laptop. So for instance, if a screen is broke, it might end up costing the parent $100 and something for a broken screen. So one thing that we've heard from some parents, we've talked to teachers, administrators that they thought might be something good to look at is a protection plan. So it's not a fee, it's not a fine, it's not any of those things, but it really gives us that option that if a parent wants to pay $25 up front and then certain things happen to the laptop, it covers that first incident with the laptops. Completely optional, it's not something we would require any parents to do, but it's really just that protection plan that they can look at as an option. And so we wanted to get your guys' eyes on the document, your thoughts on it, and then your approval for us to move forward with that as an option for that program.
So is this something we're self-insuring basically for the 25 additional costs, or is it an outside?
So we stay away, so it's not insurance,
Right.
it's not insurance, it's
Covers part.
a protection plan.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, it's something that we would take in as a district.
Yep.
And pool those funds, so lower the risk for the parents that have these going in and out. So yeah, it's an in-house, fund program, not a fee, optional. Nobody you don't have to join it, but if you do, then you would be protected from a larger cost.
And then it would allow if there's a subsequent damage, and you did the first $25, that subsequent one, you could pay $20 for that as well. So
Do you know how much it cost us to repair laptops this last year? I don't know if you even know yet because we had so many
I was
out.
gonna say, we're still working through the process because as we gather them back for the summer, there's obviously certain repairs that we do throughout the summer to make sure they're ready for next year. So I probably couldn't give you a total cost currently. I could get it back to you guys and send it to you of where we currently are. And it varies from year to year and it just depends. This was our first year that we had K3 had laptops as well. So we added, when you think of that, we added 350 plus, we added quite a few per grade level there. So that was a total addition of like 1,200 laptops. So we most likely are gonna see a higher cost this year just because of the addition of laptops as well.
Do you think, well, I'm curious to see as they go through them, if they found more damage because the younger kids were taking them home and bringing back every single day versus
Oh,
if they
yeah.
have them and left at school at those costs.
We
Because
do have the numbers like by school. We have been following that and looking at specific grade levels. And so I can share some of that information with you guys too as well. So you can see that.
And I know only speaking because my son was a ninja, that a lot of times they use old ones and take parts and,
We
they
do.
try to be as frugal as they can, but then there's some things.
So is that
Yeah.
balance of when we have a
Mhm.
device that, is it worth repairing the device or is it now time to use parts to repair a different device? And so
Mhm.
they work through that process and we do use those older ones or those ones that it's not worth us
Yeah,
repairing it to
Yeah.
repair others, yeah.
I think the big benefit is it
it helps.
lets us control some of that cost ourselves as a district and
Mhm.
get that economies of scale versus having one family, 5 families, 10 families pay the damage cost. We can start to pool that. And we have such a robust program with so many one-to-one pieces of equipment that I think it gives parents that option to
Yeah, it's not like we're
mitigate.
telling them they have to.
Well, and what we've heard is when administrators have to make those phone calls because there is damage to a laptop, there is the question, well, was there an option to Is there an
Yes.
option for a protection plan, or is there something? And so we've heard that quite a bit. And so
Good.
in doing our research, other districts have implemented very similar things with the protection plan. And so seems like that's the route a lot of other districts are going as well.
I think it's a
Knowing
good
my-
idea.
Knowing my kids, can we prepay for their school career?
I think in some
And
families,
this is gonna be some year.
Yes, I
mean,
would,
I'm
well, I
just
was
saying.
like, this one might help some families because
how have we discussed yet how the education to the community is gonna look on this piece? Or when is it when they come for open house and deploy laptops, or is there a deadline they have to purchase it by? Kind of, have we talked through that
Well,
logistical piece?
yes, we've started to talk through that. That's why we wanted to get it on this month's agenda. So then that gives us an opportunity as we start sending out all the stuff for school registration, that we can send those communications out. We can have it at open house. Prior to deployment, we would obviously give this option to parents. And so we have those different avenues that are coming up. We can obviously look at the Gazette and some of our newsletter options as well. So we've talked through that. We just wanted to make sure that we got approval here first before we started.
I think for me, the only thing maybe I would suggest, which you guys tell me what you think, is to bold the part where it says the $25 cost covers one claim per year, and then subsequent claims may be filed and will occur at $20 deductible. Because I think if people, like at the beginning of the year when I'm signing 10,000
I'd be like,
things,
well, I
I
paid
don't really read
25.
it. Yeah, I paid my
Mhm.
25. Why isn't this covered? I just think that might help. I don't know. What are your thoughts? You guys read a lot of contracts and papers. What do you?
Yeah, you could highlight it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just want to help, like, I guess, bring emphasis to that. Like, I would hate for a family to think, well, I paid 25 times 5 or 25 times 4, and then, but there are some families with 7 or 8 kids, which, I mean, maybe not all of them, like, oh, my big kid's responsible, but my 3rd grader takes apart everything and leaves things, like, so that one would want it. So I like that it's optional and that we can just pick and choose, and I think it will be a good option for a lot of people.
Mhm.
One last question. Who manages all of these? Like, is this Nick in the tech department will be in charge of the
No,
funds and
so
the paperwork
We
and the?
will push it out in Skyward.
Okay,
So when you do your student registration, Skyward, we will have an option there. So then they can fill it out on there, and then that will help us track
Oh,
it as
sweet.
well to see who.
and you can pay the fee on there and.
Yep.
Good, like that.
So we have some options to work through that way on the tech side.
cool.
So we're not collecting all the paper.
Logistics.
Any more discussion or questions? So with that, I entertain a motion to go forward with the device protection plan.
I'll make a motion to go forward with the device protection plan as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll say it.
Any further discussion?
Just popping into my head, because you did mention families with multiple kids, would there be an option for sometimes $100 up front if you got 4 kids is a little more than, is there an ability to maybe split that or make that in a few payments as opposed to just one?
Let me look,
Makes sense.
Something to consider.
let me look into what we can do there. Because really it could be as part of our rollout plan and then figuring out how what's the date on that?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Next piece on the agenda, surplus technology. Athletic. I was looking at the surplus equipment sale.
So on your guys's, on the board agenda, there is a list that Tech put together so you can see specifically what they're requesting. And then I also put the code in front of you. So if you look at page 2 of the code, that's what we're referencing. So we usually come to the board at some point during the year for all 3 of these departments to request the surplus items that are either out of date, no longer usable, or that we could sell and gain some money back to the district. And so the way the code reads is anything that is less than $500 that the board can give the people that lead these departments permission to go ahead and surplus that without specific board approval for each of the items. If it's over $500, then we would need to come back and get approval line item by line item for you. everything currently that we're requesting to get approval for is less than $500, and then we're just requesting that blanket approval to allow whoever's leading these departments the ability to surplus throughout the year of all items less than $500 or dispose of items less than $500 as necessary. And so I highlighted on page 2 kind of that paragraph in that state code.
Are these surplus, do we know the status of which items are in what
So
What-
each,
shape, I guess?
yeah, so each department has to keep their inventory. And so most of the time, if it's something we're dispensing or getting rid of, then it's obviously in the worst condition. There are items that we can resell and make some money back. And so we have companies that we work with on that will come in and look at it and determine if we can sell it back to them or do like a third-party sale with it. And so we'll go through those routes before.
So this isn't an overbuy, this is outmoded,
Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
Supporting.
No
So
more.
like printers that no longer the software updates
Yes.
or items like that. And so we'll keep them for quite a few years for parts or stuff like that. But then once we get past that point, there's
that's
not a
good.
lot we can do.
So, school uniforms and.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, my only concern was, with the big switch to technology and all the infrastructure stuff we did last year, I would just be a little miffed if this was an overbuy and we're trying to unload it again. So as long as it's, I mean, if
We've
it's
been technology
outloaded.
for a while.
anything that would still have parts we could use or offer us some type of anything, we have not. This will just be all items that.
They're outdated,
Assistance with.
Perfect.
So the stuff under 500, how would the board be notified? Would it be a note or how does it?
Less than 500?
We don't have to be.
You
No.
don't, we don't have to bring each of those items to you.
So
You
that's
just give us
each,
the approval.
under 500 each.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if it is something that is over, if it's an item that would be over 500, we would bring that to you in a list and say,
Okay.
please grant us approval to get rid of this with their value attached to it, so you can see that.
I would be highly doubtful.
Yeah, so. So the motion would be for blanket approval for anything under $500.
Yes,
And then anything over 500 would be the way it's been on the agenda. And we
Yeah.
would look at it, see the list and go, so.
Yeah.
Any more discussion or questions or?
And I'm assuming that at a summertime, at a level, there is some oversight so that we have some standards in place. I mean, my concern is that, 291 iPads of less than $500 in value adds up to a lot of money.
well, and we can
And so-
change the recommendation as well if the board is more comfortable to have grant the superintendent the permission to do it, so it doesn't have to come to the board level, and then they could submit those lists to the superintendent for oversight as well, if the board is more comfortable with that recommendation too.
I think I'd be more comfortable with that, just so there's a
Yeah.
second set of eyes, right?
Yeah, just have a second set of
Just
eyes.
keeps out of trouble.
Yeah.
They're just, so it's just
Oh, yeah.
day-to-day operations and one more set of eyes. So-
I mean, I'm not above, it's not that I don't trust anybody, but I do want, if we can have another set of eyes going, just questioning, because, even at $499, if you add all this stuff up, there's a lot of money sitting there.
Yeah.
Right,
No.
so, and I know that some of this stuff's worth $10, right? But just to be able to have some level of oversight, I
It
think
protects everybody.
Yeah.
Now,
That's a
we
good
don't
idea.
question like, well, no, I had Lisa or Mark approve it.
Yeah, flesh, it's off your shoulders, you're good. Pass that on.
Any more discussions or questions? With that, I would entertain a motion.
So I make a motion that the request to surplus for technology, curriculum, and athletics in accordance with Idaho code and approval by the superintendent or assistant superintendent be granted
For items less than 500.
for items less than $500. Well, it's stated that in code.
One second.
Seconds. Any more discussion?
Is that motion specific enough for what you needed?
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0. With that, we're done with our meeting, except we had somebody sign in tonight. And I would welcome our general public to start showing up at our meetings again as we move forward. And we'll give you 3 minutes at the end of the meeting to address the board. I also encourage everybody to reach out to your board member, email, phone call, to bring items up for discussion beforehand. I think we're in a good place, and as always, we welcome input. So with that, we'll have our one person who signed up. Want to introduce yourself? And
I'm Kelsey. I'm not gonna give my last name because my daughter's asked me not to.
We understand, that's okay.
so Kelsey, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, so I just wanted this to fall in as many ears as possible, is just that I think we can do better than CNN as a supplemental informational. I think we can do better than Scholastic for an informational text, surprisingly. I thought that, I was a Scholastic kid, and I was pretty surprised with what I found. I have a middle schooler, a high schooler, and 2 elementary students. And I have just a few things I grabbed, subtle things that they said that are very unbiased to pretty blatant things. And I was not ready for it, so I was surprised, and I did a quick Facebook search on some of the authors. So we are no to critical race theory, but some of these authors, I look on Facebook, I'm like, they're totally critical race theory, and they're writing in these supplemental materials for these elementary kids and stuff. So that's a concern that I think we could maybe have a finer comb brush to go through this, more watchdogs looking for this kind of agenda getting into our kids. And then CNN, which is just crazy to me that we're even having this my kids are in the school district because I trust that this is a conservative school district and I can count on that. And I'm like, the teachers have been amazing. I'm like, why is CNN in here? Look at how this is just a all sides media bias. CNN is as far left as you can be, and this was given to me by my liberal sister-in-law. So it would be like the equivalent of me wanting Christian-based news in the school district. It's like people would say no. So I've also heard this concern from seniors asking and in conferences and stuff, saying, what can I do? My teacher's playing CNN and I'm just tired of it. So I'm sure that even some of the CNN stuff is neutral, but it's kind of what they represent. So far left leaning. And I was gonna say, my whole family's all left leaning, all from left leaning to very liberal, and none of them listen to CNN. So I just thought, why are we having our kids listen to it? My high schooler tried to talk to a teacher, and he was very polite and said, well, you can leave the classroom if you're offended by anything, but my thought is that's not what's best. What's best is to either, if we're gonna go CNN, also do some conservative news. And there's a list of conservative news, like I've emailed, and that these teachers can show, or do something more neutral. And so I have policy number 2340 in front of me, and it says teachers shall guide discussions and procedures with thoroughness and objectivity to acquaint students with the need to recognize opposing viewpoints. However, the conservative viewpoint, I don't feel like in supplemental material is ever shared. Like our kids might be conservatives, so they'll, like from elementary to especially middle school, my daughter says they voice their opinions and it's pretty conservative, whatever. But then once you get to the high school, you can lose that. So, anyways, if you want to look, I just wrote a few things just to show you if I'm not pro Black Lives Matter, pro, just other things, and it comes to last it. So that was it.
Nope, we appreciate your input. We can talk further too, as well as we go forward. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kelsey.